My mom always considered herself a real art lover, but since we weren't very well off, she had to admire it from afar for the most part. The only time she got to immerse herself in it was when she went to the local museum on free days. One day, though, she brought home a painting from an estate sale. The sale took place at the home of an older rich man who lived on the other side of town. She felt it was a real steal, but I had very different feelings about it, though. I took an almost instant dislike to the painting from the moment she brought it in the house. Despite this, I found that the painting had an almost hypnotic allure. When you examined it closely, the painting just drew you in no matter how hard you tried not to look at it. After she hung it up on the wall, I studied it for hours on end. I could almost imagine myself walking in the landscape of the painting and feeling the cool breeze generated by the windmill. What finally broke the spell that held me in a trance was the doorbell ringing. I just came out of it and was able to get away from the painting then. I vowed from then on in to keep my distance from the painting, but at night I could swear I heard noises coming from the room where the painting was hung. It sounded like the landscape the painting was in. There were ocean sounds and waves and wind. Sometimes when I passed the room, it almost seemed like there was a cold wind coming out of it, and I could almost smell the scent of the ocean in the air. Initially, I thought I was the only one that heard the noises and felt the temperature changes. But my sister revealed that she heard the noises too, and she felt the coldness coming from the room. Like me, she started to avoid the room altogether. Our house wasn't that big, so it was sort of hard to do. Strangely, our parents never heard anything or felt anything, or at least they never mentioned it to us. One night I found my sister standing in front of the painting, and it was like she was mesmerized by it. Even when I tried to pull her out of the room, she resisted, but finally I tugged on her so hard that she came out of the trance she was being held in. She told me she never remembered even looking at it, and barely remembered me getting her out of the room. We told our parents about it, but they said we were just crazy. I think that the painting held something over my parents. Maybe it was as if they were in some kind of spell themselves. I really started to hate that painting, but I feared it too. Both my sister and I did everything we could to avoid the room altogether. Every day the painting remained in the house, a feeling of dread hung over me. Everything came to a head one night when there was a terrific storm that swept into town. The winds blew and there was lightning, and a tree burst through the window and smashed onto the painting, breaking it into pieces. That was the end of the painting and the end of the curse it put on our house. I can say I was very glad to have that painting finally gone. My daughter had always wanted to be an artist. The trouble was, she had trouble drawing hands. They never looked in proportion to the rest of the body. To help her, my wife and I picked up this wooden hand figure at a yard sale. Other than the fingers being articulated, there was nothing fancy about it. She kept it on her desk where she did most of her drawing. She used it for a while, but after a few weeks, she asked us to take it away from her room. Obviously, we were curious as to why she didn't want it there any longer. She just said it started creeping her out. It had a strange and bad vibe coming from it. I thought she was being a little crazy, but I did as she requested and removed it from her room. Being lazy, I just moved it down the hall to the master bedroom. Doubling down on my laziness, I then just put it on my dresser and put off any long-term plans for getting rid of it. Most likely I would just throw it away, but that would happen in time. Somehow, I never got around to that for reasons I couldn't explain. It was like the thing was telling me it didn't want to be thrown away. Sometimes at night, I would walk by it and feel that same sensation when people say that someone has walked over their grave. Sort of an electric tingling sensation that ran up my entire body. One night, when I was getting ready for bed, I looked at the hand and started having trouble breathing. It was as if something was clutching me by the throat. When I looked at the hand, it just sat there, inert and unmoving. But instead of the fingers standing up straight like I'd positioned them, they were clenched together in a fist. That's when I had this feeling that the hand was clutching my throat, tightening down every second. Breathing became a real effort. It had to be the hand. So I started toward it, but I could barely stand by then. I felt as if I might pass out at any moment as I staggered for the hand. Just before I was about to pass out, I was able to take a swipe at it and knock the hand to the ground. As soon as it hit the floor, whatever was choking me stopped, as if some kind of spell had been broken. I wasted no time and took the thing out to the trash, but not my trash, but a neighbor's house down the street. I thought everything was over, but 2 days later, police cars and an ambulance were outside my neighbor's house. I learned the next day that my neighbor had choked to death. I never spoke another word about what happened, not to anyone. A few years ago, my wife's great aunt passed away. While my wife didn't know the aunt very well, she said she had fond memories of the woman. She did add that she didn't have the same feelings for her great uncle. There was something dark and mysterious about the man. She said as a child she was actually afraid of him, but she never knew exactly why. As a part of her great aunt's will, my wife inherited an old antique hope chest that must have been in her family for generations, or so we were told. The thing felt like it weighed half a ton. It took both my brother and I to carry it to the third floor of our house. Taking it all the way up there was a chore, but it was what my wife wanted, so that's the way it went down. Once we had it in place, we decided to see what was inside. Most of it was innocuous. There were blankets and some notebooks, but one item stood out. It was an old doll in a purple dress. It looked innocent enough, but as soon as it entered our house, strange things started happening. Lights would come on and turn off for no reason. We heard strange noises from our attic. Even a ceiling fell in one of our bathrooms. This could all be a coincidence, but I don't think so. One day I came home from work and my wife had the doll out on the kitchen table. For some reason, I had these strange feelings about the doll. I sort of hated it, but also feared it. There was no explaining it. My wife, though, seemed quite fascinated by the thing, despite all my misgivings. It was like it held her in some kind of spell. I ended up taking a walk just to get away from the damn thing. Up until then, our run of bad luck had only been with the house, blinking lights, strange noises, the collapsed ceiling. But now, whatever evil power that doll had struck my wife. The next day, she woke up in severe pain, clutching both her head and her stomach. We had no idea what it was, but it scared us, and I rushed her to the hospital where she was admitted. She was in there for 3 days, and each night I returned to the house, where it was just me and that damn doll. By the second day, I started to feel nauseous and got the mother of all headaches. I knew it was the doll. I also knew that it was only a matter of time before I ended up in the hospital or worse. I vowed no matter what my wife said, I was getting rid of it, and I was doing it that very night. But it wouldn't go down without a fight. As I approached the doll on our kitchen table, all my symptoms worsened, and I felt like I couldn't go on. I had to fight to push through it. Then I grabbed the doll, took it outside, and threw it in the woods behind our house. Almost immediately, I began to feel better. I even talked to my wife later, and the doctor said that she would be released in the morning. All of her symptoms were gone. My only regret was that I left that damn thing in the woods for some poor soul to find. I hoped and prayed that it wouldn't happen, but I certainly wasn't going to go look for it.